Christians don't need to be depressed because they've got Jesus. Well, that's all well and fine. But sometimes you need to actually spend some time. And sometimes you need to recognize and notice the problems that depression brings about. Mental health is a huge issue in even the Christian community.
We'll talk about this and much more today. Welcome to a Writer's Day podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to a Writer's Day podcast. My name is Ruth Douthit, and I'm an award-winning, multi-published author of books for adults and kids in YA, in fiction and nonfiction. And I'm so happy to have you here with me today. I started this podcast for you, folks who love to learn more about the writing craft and listen to amazing, best-selling, award-winning authors like the author I'm going to talk with today. So welcome. And if you like what you hear, like I always say, please go and subscribe and follow me and leave a review. I'd love to know what you think. And head over to my website at artbyruth.com to learn more about my newest release, The Secrets of Worthington Orphanage, a good old-fashioned spooky ghost story series set in the 1920s in a spooky orphanage. And it is the prequel to my award-winning children's series. And so that book is out in the world right now, and I'm currently working on book 2 of my Desert Shadows suspense series. And I will be revealing the title and book cover soon. So be sure and sign up for my newsletter, where I always give away a book every month. And if you sign up for my newsletter, you'll also receive a free PDF copy of my short story, Support Group, which is a speculative science fiction kind of story. I think you'll really like it. It'll give you a sample of my writing style. So head over to artbyruth.com today. Okay, here we go. Tracie Peterson is with me again today. She is the best-selling author of more than 100 novels. That's right. She writes both historical and contemporary, and she has over 6 million copies sold. Wow. She is amazing and such an inspiration to us all. And I'm so honored for her to be here again to talk about her new series, Hope of Cheyenne, and book 1 in this series, A Constant Love. So you know the drill. Grab your favorite beverage, a comfortable chair, kick back and relax as we listen to the amazing Tracie Peterson talk about her new book. Hi everyone, I'm so thrilled to have Tracie Peterson with me again to talk about her new book, A Constant Love. Welcome back, Tracie.
Thank you so much, Ruth. This is getting to be a habit.
A wonderful habit too.
It's one I very much enjoy.
I love listening to you talk about how you come up with these amazing stories. But before we talk about your new book, tell us what you've been up to.
Well, goodness, it's been a crazy last couple of months. We've had sickness and problems galore with related to that sickness. My mom just passed away in February. And it was bittersweet because I know she's in a better place and she was ready to go and be rid of pain and suffering and misery. And so we're trying to look at it in a very positive, celebrate her life kind of attitude. But of course, it's hard. You know, I miss her and I wish she were still here with us in that sense. But then I have other family members who are also sick. And so it's been just a flurry of keeping up with those people and doctor appointments and writing. And so, and then dealing with winter in Montana. So we have been very busy.
So the weather probably matches your mood, right?
True. A few weeks back, we had like over a 2 or 3 day snow. We got about 37 inches. So we had more than enough snow.
Wow, 37 inches. Holy moly.
And in one day alone, it was like we got 20 of it, and it was, or 24, I can't remember, but it was like, seemed like there for a while, all we were doing was shoveling.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I would say the weather definitely matches your mood. I'm so sorry about your mom passing away. That is so hard.
Thank you. everybody needs their mama, and
Yeah.
so
I was just telling another author that I was talking about passing away and stuff. She lost her husband. And I was just saying, it's such a difficult stage of life that we're in right now because I
it is.
remember when it used to be weddings and baby showers and now it's funerals and
Exactly. Or sick.
losing. Yeah, or
Sickness. Lots of,
sickness and hospital
I
stays.
have four terminally ill people in my life right now.
Oh my
And it
goodness.
just totally it seemed to start happening all at once.
Hmm.
And it really does take you into a new um stretch of your relationship with the Lord for sure.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
so, I have
Yeah,
noticed that.
it changes everything. I feel it also makes you appreciate the ones who are still here.
Yes,
It
for
makes you
sure.
love them and say that you love them more often. I find myself like when my son goes to work or my husband leaves, I always make sure they know that I love them, you know.
Yes, yes.
Ah, yeah, it's
Well, and in fact,
hard.
the book we're going to discuss today uh was partly in as a result of losing a beloved family member to suicide.
Mm,
So, these things definitely play into my storytelling and
mhm,
definitely affect, the things that I do on a day-to-day basis
mhm.
along with my work. So, we just try to keep our focus on the Lord, keep that positive spirit going, and like you said, appreciate the people that we have with us still.
Hmm. And as I was talking with the other author who wrote a book that was about the kind of disease her husband passed away from. And then after my mom died, I wrote a book called The Road to Home, which was about a girl grieving the loss of her mom. Did you find that writing about it kind of helped? Was it therapeutic for you?
It definitely was, especially, in the situation with my family member who committed suicide, because that's such a controversial subject, even in the Christian, or maybe especially, I should say, in the
Yeah.
Christian worldviews. And so dealing with his suicide and then taking it to the scriptures and just really reviewing and looking and reading, I was comforted and, you know, uh, felt like overall better equipped to deal with it, and the writing really helped.
Good. Yeah, we often, I work with Grief Share, and we often tell folks to draw near to God, go into His Word, and
Yes,
just devour it. That's how it helps.
I agree totally.
Well, now let's talk about your new book, A Constant Love. And even though it has a heavy topic, how did you approach writing this story?
Well, first of all, it is a new series called The Hope of Cheyenne, and
Great.
it follows up the last series that I had out last year, which was The Heart of Cheyenne.
Hmm.
And we pick up some characters that kind of pop in from the first series, but for the most part, we have totally new characters. And I wanted to create this story in particular that picks up after they had a horrific winter in 1886-87. And so you had a situation where in and around several states, they had had a summer drought in the Midwest. And so there wasn't a whole lot of grass and feed for the cattle as it was. And then as it went into winter, people were totally unexpecting, a lot of snow, a lot of cold, really sub-zero cold.
Hmm.
And so you had these poor cattle who had nothing to graze on because everything had dried up and died during the summer. And now they're into winter without the type of feed that we now know that ranchers keep track of, and do a lot of grains and hays and stuff just in case they don't have the ability for the cattle to graze. And so, here was this horrific winter that is well documented in history. And I thought it would be great to pick up in the aftermath of that rather than just really focus on that storm itself, because afterwards people were just profoundly affected. A lot of them lost everything they had. And so I wanted to kind of couple that with the loss of life, the loss of identity, and just the overall focus on how to find happiness again in the midst of grief.
Mm. And we often find that in scripture, the Lord used weather oftentimes to test his people. And
Sure.
these were a lot of transplants. They were from different parts of the country who had probably never dealt with such a winter.
Exactly. And like I said, this was a pretty bad, it spread out across clear from Texas to Montana. So
Mm.
it was a bad winter for everybody. And
Wow.
you know, it there was just all sorts of elements that happened, different things that took place that if it had gone just a little bit another way, it wouldn't have been the same. And
Mhm.
so, all these different situations that popped up just kept complicating the situation.
And much like suicide, you can't prepare for something like that. It just
No,
hits you. It
right?
blindsides you. Yeah.
And they couldn't prepare for this crazy winter.
Mm. So tell us about Micah Hamilton and Charlotte Aldrich.
Well, they've known each other all their lives pretty much. I mean, their families came out to the Wyoming Cheyenne area when they were some of them very young and others of them a little older, but they all had a community of ranches that were close in proximity to each other because oftentimes you saw that when the West was being settled, that a few ranches would position themselves within, just a couple of miles of each other so that they had help if there was trouble or problems. And so
Mhm.
I had Micah's family and Charlotte's family do that along with another family. And so they were all growing up together. Charlotte loved Micah since she was a little bitty girl. Micah just saw her as his best friend's little sister. And so as they, aged, Charlotte continued to have this deep, abiding love for Micah and the determination that one day he would be her husband. And so we have her with that back set of feelings and emotions. And then Micah, well, right from the get-go, I don't feel like I'm giving anything away, but Micah's
Mhm.
father is the one who kills himself. And it's
Okay.
all related to this storm and the loss that he feels from losing his best friend. And so Micah immediately goes into this deep depression and feeling of, why didn't I see this coming? What could I have done to make things different? Was it my fault? All the things that people lay on themselves after a suicide. And so he's dealing with that kind of grief and sorrow. And Charlotte just decides enough's enough. She wants to pull him out of his depression and sadness and help him to start living again.
Oh, wow. What a powerful story. Now, you're right. There is a stigma attached with suicide, but I'm sure back then it probably wasn't as bad as it is now. I mean, with social media, how we
Actually,
Christians, tend to be experts on everything.
Actually, it was even worse, though.
Was it
To
worse?
tell you the truth,
Wow.
Ruth, they would not bury people who had killed themselves. They wouldn't bury
Oh,
them in a church cemetery.
oh my goodness. How
And the,
tragic.
the attitude was just totally alienating and oftentimes trickled down to the families that were involved, because it was
Hmm.
like, well, if they were Christians, they wouldn't have killed themselves. Or
Oh
if the
my.
family had offered godly counsel, they wouldn't have killed themselves. And so a lot of times you had this big stigma and people not knowing how to deal with the topic and the situation, or even the religious attitudes of the day, would just ostracize those people and avoid them altogether. And of course, we sometimes see that even now, that people don't know how to deal or cope with,
Hmm.
someone who has killed themselves, deal with the families and what to say and what not to say.
Hmm.
And so they don't deal with them at all.
Wow. I had no idea it was so bad back then.
Oh,
But
yes.
I suppose it makes sense. I suppose one person said, well, Judas hanged himself. So,
Yeah, we don't want
oh
we don't want
my.
that kind of person buried in our cemetery. It might
Oh.
might influence somebody, I guess. I don't
Yeah,
know what
right.
to.
Well, so you had that and this massive storm and the aftermath of the storm to deal with. How on earth did you approach writing this story and having it be, even a romance?
Well, a lot of prayer went into it, that's for sure, because
Mhm.
I didn't want it to be such a downer with these incredibly hard topics. Plus, Charlotte's father and brother die also right at the beginning, so I don't feel like I'm, spoiling the story for anybody. She's dealing with guilt because the last conversation she had with her dad was one that was pretty brutal and to the point where he was trying, he wanted her to marry someone in particular that she didn't want to marry. And she's in love with Micah and she tells him as much. But he has seen her mother struggle all of their life as a rancher's wife, and he wants something better for his daughter. And
Yeah.
he doesn't want her to be a rancher's wife. And if she married Micah, that's what he figured she'd be. So he's not listening to her. She is livid with his desire to what she feels like sell her off to the highest bidder who's not a rancher. And so they have words before he goes out into the storm and is caught up in it and dies. And so she's dealing with that grief. Mike is dealing with his grief. And through it, I wanted to show that sharing common grief is oftentimes a way to bond with other people
Hmm.
and to share that burden. And so as Mike and Charlotte share their burden and help each other to deal with their combined grief as well as guilt, then there's room for these feelings to come in to play with, the foundation that has always been there, which was that they already loved each other as friends. I mean, Micah thinks the world of her. And
Hmm.
she, of course, like I said, has been in love with him. So romance just kind of filters in as that grief is dealt with and as the friendship is allowed to, be restored in the sense of, they've kind of gone their separate ways for a little while and now they're back together. So
Oh,
there's that comfort and just showing how they can, as they grow closer to God and an understanding of the grief and all that, then there's room for this, the affairs of the heart.
oh, that's so true. We often want others to know on their grief journey, they're not alone. You
Yeah,
may feel like you're alone, but you're not. And so you had to bring them together with their grief, but also have Micah start to see her in a different way, other than just
yes,
like the little sister.
exactly,
That
exactly.
must have been fun. A fun challenge. Well, you've set your stories in Cheyenne, but for this story, you had to do some research. So, how were you able to take advantage of the setting of Cheyenne and connect it to your protagonist?
Well, over the years, I've been through Cheyenne many, many, many times because once we moved to Montana, we were still making trips back to Kansas to visit family and whatnot. So we would make Cheyenne kind of our halfway point.
Mm,
And so I was able to do a lot of research there. It is such a fascinating town. They have a just rich, vivid history and a lot of different things that took me totally by surprise, just some of the ways things came about through the railroad, and the way the community continued to grow. And they honestly thought Cheyenne was going to be like the Chicago of the West, and be even bigger than Denver because it was going to
wow.
be this crossroads with the Transcontinental Railroad and then other railroad lines and whatnot that came up from the south and north. And, they
Yeah.
saw that this would be this huge place. And the attitude and atmosphere that, they're on the front range, the mountains are just to the west of them. And then, there's prairie that spells out all around them. And it's just a fascinating place. And as I went through some of their history and researched, I couldn't leave out a setting of a ranch. Most of the stories told, well, all of them in the heart of Cheyenne, that people were in town doing town jobs and that kind of thing. And so I knew I had to have at least one ranch story.
Of course. So why didn't it become like this metropolis like Chicago? Was it the weather?
You know, I have no idea.
Oh,
I think that it's one of those great mysteries, I suppose. Denver became so big so fast
mm,
and started out with, like mining supply town and
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
whatnot. But I have no clue. I've never
that's
really
interesting.
tried to figure that one out.
I'll have to do some research on that. Maybe folks on their way stopped in Chicago and thought, well, let's just stay here.
My husband used to joke about people on the Oregon Trail. The reason
Oh,
this got settled was the people whose wagons broke down.
and they said, let's just stay here,
Let's just stay here.
not knowing how lucky they were.
There you go.
Well, so since you deal with such heavy topics in this book, what's the message that you want readers to walk away from after having read A Constant Love?
Well, I hope they would have a better understanding and more peace of mind on the topic of suicide, for one thing. I would love for them to be able to, uh, you know, look at it from a biblical approach as far as like bearing one another's burdens and coming alongside the grieving and those who are dealing with their own depression and discouragements. Oftentimes I've heard Christians just kind of, in dealing when someone says that they're really depressed, they're like, oh, well, I'll pray for you. And Christians don't need to be depressed because they've got Jesus. Well, that's all well and fine. But sometimes you need to actually spend some time. And
Mm,
sometimes you need to recognize and notice the problems that depression brings about. Mental health is a huge issue in even the Christian community, perhaps even especially in the Christian community. And we need to be aware of that. And I would just definitely want readers to think about that as they deal with the people in their lives. And then also, though, I don't want people to be overwhelmed with guilt. A person
mhm,
who takes their own life, this is a decision that they have contemplated and they have not made public or, a lot of times give no sign whatsoever. And so, we can't take on that guilt for ourselves. And I just hope that anybody who reads this book would be encouraged and know that God's love is so perfect and so powerful that as Romans 8:28 or Romans 8:38 and 39 say, nothing can separate us from the love of God that's in Christ Jesus our Lord.
mhm. Oh, it's beautiful. Well said. And you're right. We need to show compassion for folks. I mean, if someone came to church with a broken leg, we wouldn't say, I'll pray for you, or, you should just get over it, or
Yeah,
you have a
exactly.
lack of faith, right?
Yes, your faith
Or,
is lacking. Get up and walk.
yeah, if they have diabetes or something, we don't say
Yes,
that. Well, mental
no.
health is just, depression is just as real as that. So you're
And
right.
it's
We
a
need
huge
to,
crisis. It really.
it is. You're right. We need to listen to people a little bit more
Mhm.
and, yeah. But you're right. Jesus can restore us and, heal us. And that's the important part about it. Don't get stuck, like you said, in the grief, in the guilt, but talk to the Lord about it. Give it to Him. I always tell folks, even if you have to yell and scream at Him, do it. He's there. He
Right.
can take it. He loves you.
Absolutely.
So
And
just,
reach out. I mean, don't sit in a dark corner by yourself.
yeah. Well, with over 100 novels published, how on earth do you keep your stories so fresh and engaging for your readers? My goodness.
Well, right from the start, I pray. I pray a lot on these books. I constantly seek the Lord's direction. As I'm doing Bible studies, I'm looking for themes and things that really touch my heart. And the various things the Lord's teaching me a lot of times go into my stories because I feel like, I want to share it. I want to pay it forward. I want people to know that this is the foundation of who I am as a writer as well. And then, I watch a lot of documentaries. I read a ton. I love nonfiction. And so as I sit down and I read various books on historical events or historical characters, a lot of times various ideas for stories pop into my head and I'm off and running. Recently, we had to make a trip to Seattle, and so we stayed in a little town along the way, and it was like, oh, I love this area. I would love to write a story. So now I'm checking into the history and researching the various things that were going on in that area. It never fails that something will pop up and maybe I'll just see someone working at something. Like one time I was all of a sudden face to face with a woman who was spinning. And I thought, oh, a spinning wheel is so neat. So I learned how to spin. I thought it
Oh,
would be fun just as a hobby, but then I knew I wanted to write about it because there were interesting things that were going on with that. And so, things just come along, and I believe that God has given me a gift when it comes to story ideas. And I believe that imagination and creativity is totally his gift to me.
and we, your readers, do too. I completely agree with that. And I just love how clever you are. It's so neat. I watch documentaries too and get inspired, but I love how you travel and you go through a small town and you're researching and you think, yeah, this would be great. That's so wonderful. Well, so now I heard a little rumor that you might have a Christmas story coming out this year.
I do. There's going to be actually, I'm part of a novella collection, and this will come out this December, I believe. And the other two writers are Misty Beller
Hmm.
and Karen Whittemer.
Ooh,
And so they will be Western settings. They will be Christmas, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
oh, that sounds amazing. I love those writers. Okay, well, look forward to that and head over to traciepeterson.com where they can sign up for your newsletter, correct?
Yes, they can.
Wonderful. And then they'll learn more about these upcoming projects. Fantastic. And so, as though A Constant Love is already out in the world right now, but listeners, you can head over and purchase your copy wherever Tracie's books are sold, like Amazon or Bethany. They get it at Baker?
Absolutely.
Woohoo! Fantastic.
Bakerbookhouse.com.
Yes, bakerbookhouse.com. Well, Tracie, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been such a treat. I'm always inspired by how much work you put into your stories, but you make it sound like it's not work at all, like it's fun.
Oh, it is. Research is probably my favorite part of anything I do. I love learning. And my husband and I was talking about that the other day. Learning is just something we both cherish so much. And so it plays well with what I do.
And we are better for it. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat with us about your new book.
Thanks for having me, Ruth.
What a treat to talk with Tracie Peterson again about her amazing new book, her new series, The Hope of Cheyenne. Ooh, I love that. And I'm just always so inspired by her and her research, and where she gets her ideas from. Wow. But now I'm even more inspired because she chose to write about such a deep topic, the topic of suicide and how it affects an entire family. And so I hope that you've been inspired too, to maybe tackle those difficult themes, but to always put that light in your story and that message of hope for your readers so it's not too heavy for them. And she does that so beautifully. So thank you, Tracie, for joining me today. Thank you all for listening. And like I said, I hope that you've been inspired to keep going on your writing journey because, like I always say, someone out there needs to read your story. And until next time, God bless.